the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
This is the fourth presentation. The first one was about guilt and humility. The second was about what is self-esteem. The Christian way, we like it, yani, to be. And the third one was about reasons, etiology of low self-esteem. Why some of us develop with some degree of low self-esteem. Although we know our relationship with Christ, but why we develop as such. So we have seen that the parents did not portray for us the real loving Christ by certain negative way of parenting. We mentioned 10 of them. And we said about childhood and adolescent experiences are very important because the personality developed during the first 5 or 6 years. 85% of it. And especially abuse and bullying during this time. Abuse and bullying, it leaves a tremendous negative effect on children and adolescents. There is no one in school who is not picked upon. Everybody, they picked on them. Whether short or tall, heavy set or skinny, eyeglasses or without, giving labels, trying to touch. So many things happen in the school and unfortunately in our homes, which leave deep wounds, scars inside us. And I'm sure there are so many in this church are having deep scars, emotional scars inside them from something happened during childhood or adolescence. And maybe they didn't tell anybody about it, but it is still inside us. And as it aches our present, we cannot deal with it. That's why I encourage, if anyone went through any of these difficulties in his childhood or high childhood or adolescence, please ask for help. If you cannot do it yourself, as I'm going to explain in the treatment, in the therapy, please ask for help. At least open up to a father of confession. We see so many tragedies which were happening before, and still it has its effect on our present. Don't continue. If you have something which you want to admit, something happened to you, or you did something in your past life which you regret, please get over it. And there are certain ways to do that. Certain parents have very unrealistic high demands from their own children, whether academic, social, sport, spiritual, which could affect, not encourage, could affect the self-esteem. Some of the children, or they drop high school just because they are unable to satisfy the high demands of the parents. So we are responsible to give our children a secure atmosphere full of love, discipline, rules, open communication channels, good example, spirituality. I mean, this is our part as parents. If we have failed to do any of these, still there is hope. But anyone who has any scar, he has to come front and ask. I don't mean now, but I mean, you have to consult with the father of confession and see. But don't carry these scars inside you, because it will affect your marriage and your children later on. So we talked about certain factors which could lead to damaging somehow the self-confidence, our self-confidence. We are still human beings. We are not spiritual only beings. That's why any of these could affect us. What could be the signs of low self-esteem? What could be the clinical picture? What could we see? It depends upon the age. It differs from childhood to adolescence to adulthood. And adults are able to camouflage, to portray, to show something which could be totally the opposite of what's expected to be low self-esteem. But in general, we see in children and adolescents that they show helplessness, powerlessness. They have low self-image of themselves and low energy. They daze. Many times they are not there. Daydreamers, introvert, not sociable. We see certain signs which show even a social worker that something is wrong in that person. Something happened or is happening to his or her life. As I have mentioned, maybe last year, in the US now, we have strict law regarding bullying. Anywhere in schools, starting the pre-K and up to colleges, universities, workplace, because in the US, so many, because of the pressure put on them by those who are bullying them, it ended in suppressed anger and shooting. Shooting whether at workplace, McDonald's, schools, because of suppressed anger, because what's happening. As I told you, low self-esteem could result in people dropping schools, dismissed from schools, delinquency, teenage pregnancy, eating disorders, certain compulsive behaviors, and anxiety, depression. All these could be the result of certain pressure happened and the teenager is unable or was unable to tolerate. We have to be, as parents, very careful in looking to some of these signs. And many compensatory compulsive behaviors are showing because of the low self-esteem. Of course, substance abuse. All kind of workaholism, eating disorders, perfectionist behaviors, those who are so much into sports in an addictive way, so much into beautifying themselves, cosmetic surgery all over their bodies, one after another, in a very addictive way. Some rely on spending spree. Of course, for the benefit of the malls and shopping. So some of us numb the hurt by certain habits or certain behaviors because they are unable to deal with the stress of certain factors. Unexpectedly, we'll see those with low self-esteem because some of them hate themselves or hate who they are. They get that out on others. As certain demands or putting down or judgmental, condemning remarks, and some of them also condemn themselves. But one of the two most important, which I have to highlight them, is defensiveness and oversensitivity. Defensiveness and oversensitivity. In defensiveness, they are always rushing to defend themselves. Even by, as I told you, putting others down. They defend themselves by all means. But one of the most famous way to carry I don't care attitude, and sometimes we joke about it by saying as if we are injecting in their bodies an emotional Novocaine, which make them apathetic. They don't care. You talk to them about their future, what's happening in their family, they don't care. They show that. So, if you see someone always defending his position, always on the defense, always, know that there's affective low self-esteem inside. Depression, clinical depression, with all its signs and symptoms, the sadness, the loss of interest in any activity, change of mood, sleeping habit, eating habit, even death ideation, suicidal ideation. So many tried, as I told you, to homicide or suicide. The oversensitivity means they got hurt easily. Any remark, if you sit with someone, just to encourage them, advise them, say a good word to them. Sometimes they take it as criticism, as if somebody is burned and you can't touch. If you come even close to touch, they show that they are hurting. So, hurtful criticism, although you are encouraging them or advising them. Some of them are showing unusual pride, arrogance, self-centeredness in a trial to defend themselves. They try to intimidate others, crack jokes about others. They go more into competitiveness, although they were supposed to self-esteem to get away from challenge and the competition. But they overdo it. They overdo it to the extent they want to show you they could conquer you at any time. And they brag about something real, unreal, where they overcame others or they won others in sport or fights. Pride, arrogance, showing that they have some of the best characters and they don't have it, or even they are the best. Controlling attitude. If someone is a control freak, very controlling, bragging about the self, and with self-centeredness, there is low self-esteem inside, effective low self-esteem. in the symptomatology of low self-esteem, we have to see whether he's a child, adolescent, or adult. Adults are trying to cover up, are trying to hide, but when they will marry and interaction in the family issues, as I told you, most of the personality disorders underlie that low self-esteem, and we have 19 of them, personality disorders. Compulsive addictive behavior. What do we have more than that in our life? There are so many signs and symptoms. I mean, I cannot gather all of them, but as I told you, you will notice that the locus of control, they are saying something about themselves, about failure, success, and low self-efficacy on the scale of self-efficacy. And I'm talking to you as, in public, I'm not talking about with counselor or specialist. But with counselors, we don't have only certain tests, but the way we deal with these cases, we teach them how, because their parents did not teach them so many things, we teach them problem-solving approaches. If someone is coming to complain that her friends are teasing her always, and she got hurt, she's oversensitive, and she feels so bad, to the case she wants to drop the school. We take them step by step with rationalization and reasoning till we reach with her what to say and how to act gradually. So we help those to analyze what happened in the past to them, how to deal with their past, and help them to learn some assertiveness, how to talk, how to communicate. I'm not expecting that you will do that. I'm saying practitioners or counselors, specialists can do many of these. But maybe a father of confession could explain more the relationship with God if there's anger at God or misunderstanding of the theology, which is showing its signs, behavior in the church. And misunderstanding of theology could show itself with very unusual behavior. Someone who wants to get the ladder up in one jump. Someone who have heard about, say, certain priests who were married and living celibate. And then he will ask his father of confession when he's an adolescent still. How about if I marry and live celibate? You ask him, why? Why you don't go to monastic life and consecration? No, but I just want to have the two crowns of marriage and celibacy. Something is wrong. Something is wrong in the understanding and the underlying self-esteem. There's something. He wants to be on top of others. So I'm mentioning to you some of the signs of that low self-esteem. If you have any of these, you will be given questionnaires, 3 questionnaires. I prefer you to take your time. I prefer that you take your time because they are not easy. And there's no right or wrong answers, not a test. You need your time and think carefully before you put any remark. And it will help you to assess and evaluate yourself. In the Hare self-esteem scale, for generation are still studying, they have school, but you could exchange the school by workplace. If I'm peer, home, and school, so peer, home, and friends, and home, and workplace instead of the school. As well as the index of self-esteem, 25 questions, and you have self-efficacy scale, this one to show whether you are convinced or you have a conviction that you could change or God could use you to change the environment around you. And we use that scale to follow up with the case, gradual increase. Some parents are very hard on their children to ask them to improve, say, the report card or improve their grades. Unrealistically, to jump, say, from C to A and tell them, if you get an A, I will get you such and such and such. No. We believe, as counselors, in the incremental increase. I mean, from C to be C plus, B minus, B plus, A minus. We try to do that gradually. So in increments, to help the students getting gradually. And I think all of you remember that lovely story of Bob Shinuda when he was a teacher. Do you remember? I think he was teaching English. And one of the students is always taking 0 out of 20 in the dictation, always getting 0. And at that time, Ustaz Nazir, Nazir Gayen, I was puzzled about that person in every test. So asked him, if there's any improvement, why you don't improve? I told him, yes, I have improved, but he didn't notice. You're taking 0 all the time, and yes. But before, my first 0, I was doing 20 mistakes. And he didn't notice that the mistakes became less and less. Now I'm doing 10 mistakes only. I'm taking 0 still. But my mistakes are getting less and less. Which means the minor professional looks to minor improvement. While many of you are doctors. If someone will get Bell's palsy, you don't expect someone who's 60 years old gets Bell's palsy. You don't expect that person will improve in 2 or 3 days. Exclude first tumors, exclude whatever, And then you tell them, look for any minimal changes, minimal improvement of the eyelids, the movement of the face. Minimal. You have to tell them any minimal, you have to record it. The first week, any minimal improvement which could pass unnoticed is important to the doctor. The same in dealing with such cases, whether in their habits, in understanding themselves, or in studying, we're looking for minimal incremental improvement. It's for you to be aware of that. So I cannot talk in detail about the compensatory compulsive behavior, because it's a topic by itself, all the addictive attitudes, addictive behaviors. But if you see someone so much bragging and full of pride, don't jump and teach him pride is wrong and you have to be humble. Because many of those who go to priests, as though the majority with low self-esteem, sometimes they show arrogance, and sometimes they speak in a certain way which intimidate others. So they give them a lesson how to be humble. And actually, they have very low self-esteem. They look like someone who is in the corner like a waste basket, crumbled, and try to defend himself by showing an opposite picture. We have to empathize, we have to see what's behind the words. Then, the one who is showing this arrogance, trying to show that he always wins, I have to show them that I understand what's underlying, and I encourage them to get rid of that gradually. But if I put for them, as some of the priests, they deprive them from communion, and they put exercises harsh on them, because why? They are proud of themselves. They are not. They are full of low self-esteem. They need to show them understanding, love, support, encouragement, and this takes years. It takes years till the person will start to realize. So it is very important to make a difference between someone who is really arrogant or someone who is arrogant because of low self-esteem. So those questionnaires, you will take it, and I hope you will do it later on.